Hey, Dan. There you are.
How are ya?
Good to see you, brother.
Hey man, good to see you too.
Hey, we are here today. I'm excited to have you with us. Elite Coaching has given an awesome seminar, world-class seminar, world-class speakers, and you definitely are one of those world-class speakers. And I wanted to just have you share a bit with the people what you're going to talk about. Our seminar is October 4th, 5th. It's in Chicago. And Dr. Dan, you are a corrective care-based chiropractor, man. You are the guru and master in the profession on nutrition, how to get people healthy, and I'll let you tell the story. You're going to go through how to combine a corrective care practice, nutrition, to get the best out of their patients.
Yeah, I mean, through my own story, I ended up from correction care chiropractic, very subluxation-based structural correction practice, as you know. We knew each other back in the day, Frank.
Yeah.
You always say that, right?
I got a couple more gray hairs.
Exactly. There's the gray right there to prove it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I ended up, Fred, probably what happened to Pompa, he had a huge, practice. Well, huge, I don't know. It was, 800 some a week, but that was pretty high volume.
Yeah, it is.
Especially for a structural correction practice, I would say it was, pretty high volume.
Really huge.
Yeah, but and I fell off the wagon because I got very sick myself. I ended up with debilitating chronic fatigue, anxiety, bizarre symptoms. The list goes on. I became allergic to the world. I had massive allergies to food, to the environment, to chemicals, and life as I know it, Fred, came to a screeching halt, honestly. And, I had quite the 4-year span of just not knowing what was wrong with me. And in that time, God showed me a lot to come out of my own problem. And it was after that I started teaching what I learned, honestly. And I started treating a lot of different other illnesses and hormone problems and diabetes, thyroid cases, because what I learned in my own battle is what I teach now, honestly. And, but through it, I think I had I'm a little dark. I wonder if I should open my
Yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, hang on one second. Let me try this.
No, you're good, man.
How's that? That's better,
yeah.
I think. But anyways, it was the philosophy that I carried. Remove the interference. The body has the innate ability to do the healing, and I carried that through my own illness. And really, there's probably times I always joke that medication, may have been appropriate, but I never did it. The philosophy ran too deep in my own heart, and at that time, we had 2 kids at that time, and I definitely wasn't the father I needed to be. I barely could work anymore. Matter of fact, I really couldn't. So a friend of mine was able to step in and, as a partner in that time and really help me out. But in that, I did learn what I teach today. One of the things I'm going to be teaching, we teach functional medicine, how to put this into a practice. I call it a health center of the future, meaning that, back in the day, B.J. Palmer spoke about removing chemical interference, what I call chemical subluxation. And, today, man, that plays in more than ever. If you truly have a desire, in my mind, to transform people's lives and make a difference in this world, in my mind, you have to have chemical subluxation in your practice, or at least the ability to truly remove chemical subluxation. Look, that's how I got my life back. It wasn't what I added, Fred. It's what I found out that I had going on and removed it. And the body does do the healing. And look, the exciting thing that I'm going to be teaching is this combination in the new research showing that the loss of a cervical curve, something that you and I and most people watching this, I think, understand how that affects our health. But I got to tell the story, Fred, because to really bring this to full, how this all came about. But in short, and then I'll tell the story of how I came about it. There's a gentleman, very bright biochemist named Martin Pall, and his work, he talks about tethering of the spinal cord and how it pulls down on the thalamus and the brainstem. And he talks about how this drives this chronic inflammation cycle, that if it doesn't get down regulated, this cycle perpetuates in cellular inflammation in almost every cell in the body just goes, and even parts of the brain. And he's labeled all these different conditions, and how this problem affects these different conditions. So he's done all this research on different things that help downregulate this inflammation cycle. Well, in his research, he points to in 1985, I think, and maybe a study in 83, how whiplashes can cause fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. And he explains that when this tethering of the spinal cord occurs, it stimulates this inflammation cycle, and it remains, and we have to downregulate it. So I was on the phone with him one day. I said, yeah, but what if, we have a misalignment of the spine chronically? And I explained the curve and how it could pull the spinal cord. And he said, well, absolutely. That would drive this cycle. So there's some amazing research right now showing that the loss of cervical curve causing spinal tethering is driving an inflammation cycle called the no-ono cycle. And I might have lost people right there, but it's a nitric oxide peroxynitrite cycle. This is such new and exciting information, but it gives us an etiology, an understanding of why we have so many chronic inflammation conditions. And he has linked it to, it was 19, I think it's 20-some different conditions now. So it really gives us, though, an etiology as chiropractors to understand how misalignment of this can stimulate these excitatory receptors chronically and drive inflammation of every cell in your body. So I know, look, it sounds like a lot of biochemistry, but it should excite the heck out of everyone watching this right now because, listen, this is brand new. What's that?
It's chiropractic principle.
Yeah, man, it is. And it's showing that subluxation, as well as chemicals, and I didn't get there because certain toxins drive the same cycle. So here we have a physical driver of this inflammation cycle, and we also have a chemical. So I told you I'd tell you the story that I think is kind of humorous, but I think not by accident. There's these receptors. Now I'm going to lose everyone for sure. They're called NMDA receptors. And that stands for N-methyl deaspartate. But they're the most excitatory receptors in the nerve system. Now follow me. Stay with me, chiropractors. This is exciting stuff. Trust me.
We're going.
These are the most excitatory. GABA receptors in the brain are the most inhibitory. These NMDA receptors are the most excitatory. Now I'm going to pull you back in. They're called glutamate receptors. We know that go to the Chinese restaurant and you get MSG. It stimulates these glutamate type of excitatory receptors. You can get headaches, drive inflammation, and feel really bad. Well, look, these NMDA receptors, they're most abundant right where the atlas is, right where the spinal cord is. That's where they're most abundant. So they can get stimulated very easily multiple ways via subluxation of the atlas, loss of curve, or even a drop in the atlas can cause chronic excitement into these receptors, which drive this inflammation cycle. So at this time, I'm researching these NMDA receptors. I know that they play a cycle in why people even have digestive issues. I mean, there's a whole feedback mechanism and allergies and food allergies, right? And why they don't get well despite eating the perfect diet, etc. And I have probably a stack of literature this high, and I'm coming back from a seminar, and I usually, have someone check me in, and it's all done. And this time it wasn't, and the line was out the door, and I'm probably going to miss my flight. So I go up to one of those little kiosks, and this time they were brand new. We can check yourself in. I'm thinking, this is a bad idea, man. I'm not good with this stuff, as you aren't either, evidently, Fred. The technology, we missed it by a generation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I go up to the little kiosk machine, and I'm there, and it's working out. And then all of a sudden, it gives me an option to change my seat, which I'm thinking, man, that's probably not a good idea. I'm going to screw something up. But I was all the way in the back by the bathroom. I didn't want to be back there. So I went. There was one little seat that looked like it was a different color. I clicked on it. I got the seat. So I had one choice. I got it. I was all excited and proud of myself. I just make the flight. I sit down in my new seat. The guy next to me, I never do this, Fred, because I want to sit there and read my literature. I want to read. I don't want to necessarily talk to the person next to me. So I sat down and I said, oh, what's your name? And I started talking to the gentleman next to me. As it turned out, now I'm flying back to Pittsburgh at that time. I lived in Pittsburgh. And he says, oh, yeah, I'm from Pittsburgh. Oh, yeah, I'm going back there myself. And I ask him what he does, and these are all my no-nos. He ends up being a professor and really a researcher at the University of Pittsburgh. Oh, what do you research? He says, oh, you probably never heard of it. Something called NMDA.
Oh, nice.
And I said, NMDA? I said, N-methyl deaspartate? And his eyes lit up like this. He was like, how do you know about that? I reached in my bag and pulled out the stack of literature. And of course, at that point I said, how many people in the world do you think research NMDA? Because I know this is a niche, right? And it's a brand new thing.
Yeah.
And, for neurodegenerative diseases and MS and Parkinson's. And he says, under 10 of us, I would say. So I said, what's your name? I start flipping through the thing. And there he is. He's on half of the papers that I have in my bag. The guy who was making papers. So
That's
I
awesome.
have 2.5 hours next to one of the world. As a matter of fact, then my next question was this, Fred. I said, how many people exclusively study NMDA? He said, there's probably 3 of us in the world. I'm next to the guy. So I've got him 2.5 hours. So anyways, needless to say, a lot of the stuff that you're going to learn at the seminar, it came out of some of these amazing encounters with some of these really bright people. And look, you're going to learn it, and through the years, we've learned really some amazing ways to downregulate these receptors. And structural correction is a part of that, and a lot of the functional medicine and cellular detox that I do, that you're going to see and learn. Because I have a saying: if you don't fix the cell, you will never get well. Yeah. And combining physical and chemical is the way you fix a cell, Fred.
Nice.
So that's the story.
Hey, well, you know what? I'm fired up about it, man. I'm, like I said on your TV show that we did last week, or your video, I'm excited to be in the audience. I've known you for years, or I've watched the transformation and really not just how you express yourself, but I know you're a principled guy. And this, we live in a different world today. And Dan, and what you bring to chiropractic and the profession is really a new world concept of health. I mean, you're talking about tethering on the spinal cord, and that is all important. But man, we live in a toxic environment. It's like if you really, really want to get people healthy, you have to address both.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited about it, man. You're going to be there. Number one, hey, you're Italian. Pompa, it's got to be an Italian name.
It
Chicago,
is,
great place for Italian food. So be ready for some meatballs.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And you're right on what you're saying, man. Listen, look, chiropractors, listening, and, I used to teach this stuff because I knew that we wanted to make a difference. We wanted to change the world.
Yeah.
I thought everyone was going to grab onto it because it works. There's a lot of stuff in functional medicine or nutrition, however you want to put it, that's just a bunch of garbage and crap, really. What I learned through my own battle, and some of you know that story, obviously in full, some of you don't. But it's the real deal, man. And I believe in my heart of hearts that if you don't have this in your practice and you're really telling people you're going to change their life, I believe you're incongruent. And years ago, a friend of ours, Patrick Gentempo, said, look, your practice will rise to the first level of your first incongruency, right?
Right.
And right there, that first one, man, that's as far as you go. And I believe when we're sitting before people, and we do it, man, we're going to change your life. We're going to transform your life. And we understand it, man. We get it, and we believe it. But there's a certain point today that we're realizing that we're seeing less and less miracles. It's getting harder and harder to make that difference that we're preaching and teaching. And it becomes a massive inconsistency in what we're saying. And the reason is, Fred, subluxation hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Chiropractic hasn't changed. What's changed is chemical subluxation. The amount of chemicals that we have been introduced to today, neurotoxins, not just toxins, toxins that attack the nerve system and interfere with the innate intelligence. Like no time in the history of man have we been exposed to the level of these types of chemicals ever. And if your practice isn't set up to remove it at the cellular level, I believe you're making a massive, incongruency. There's a contradiction in the things that we're saying. And look, Fred, and so let me finish that point, is this. So I was preaching that message, and I thought surely everyone is going to grab onto it. And people would get very excited because in their heart they knew they needed this, and even in their own lives, I would say. And then all of a sudden, where were they a year ago? They weren't doing it because they weren't able to make money with it. Well, that's changed because now I teach systems where you're able to make money with this. And we have guys, Fred, and I know you've spoken to some of them. I mean, we have many practitioners who make $200,000 to $300,000 a month cash in their functional medicine. You know, and over here is their chiropractic office running, and we're bringing in $200,000 now with many doctors, $100,000 a month with many doctors, you know, that are doing it, and it is cash. But more importantly, I believe it gives you a congruency and a consistency in the things that we're preaching. So that's a health center of the future, and that's what we teach, man.
Yeah, and we are hardcore spinal correction as well, so everybody needs all of it. So anyway, I'm fired up to have. What's that? When
you combine the two, man, that's
yeah, it's friggin' awesome.
It's a health center of the future.
Yeah, well, I'm honored to have you there. I know people are going to walk away transformed. We also have Garrett Gunderson, Roberto Monaco, who's going to show you how to give world-class presentations. Obviously, Dan, John DeVilla, I'm speaking on 4 topics in CA training, and you're just going to add so much value. I appreciate you being there, and I know this is the first step of us working together once again. So
absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on, and I can't wait to see you at the seminar, man.
All right, brother.
You'll learn a lot.
All right. Take care, Dan. Thanks.
Absolutely.
All right, bye.